Peace and love, peace and love. It's Quasiel coming back to you all. Sorry for the late delay. The last time, briefly, we talked about Section 1 of the state of Georgia's Constitution. And so I just want to be consistent and move forward. And now we'll be talking about Section 2, the origin and structure of government. But before we begin, we also want to look, because I promised to give a slight quick background of comprehending this section more, but it applies to all. But just to be useful with words and documents, etc., I'm going to read something valuable so you'll have a background with comprehension when we go through the origin and structure of government. I'm just going to do Section 2. I'm going to try to keep it short so you can keep your attention span active while listening. And of course, this is only reference points. This document I'm going to read. It's up to your due diligence and self-determination to ask questions and enlighten myself or your other brothers and sisters as things are done in degrees. So if I miss anything, please feel free to correct me in the comments and we can share as humans. Because this is the salvation for all the babies, is to enforce the constitutions. Well, the Constitution. So let's get it. What we're going to read here is I'll just show you. HCONRES 331. This is congressional records in short. And this is a concurrent resolution from the Senate of the United States. We all know that the Congress consists of the Senate and also the House of Representatives. And we'll learn more about that as we go through the Constitution. But we won't hear about that much in this, I don't think, in this particular section. So let's see what they say. And we all know, hopefully, the Iroquois Confederacy was also, and I may not pronunciate it right, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. That's the proper name that the people actually called themselves. Iroquois is what the Pilgrims called the natives, the aboriginals, the Moors. So they labeled them based off of their interpretation in their language to brand them, to take them outside of the nations of families, the family of nations, just on the verbal side of it. So you have to understand war to see the point. You can't debate and dismiss it because of your lack of intellect on specific topics, not you yourself not being intellectual. So concurrent resolution to acknowledge the contribution to the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution. It just straight up told you the Moors is the reason why the Constitution exists today in its form. And to reaffirm the continuing government-to-government relationship between Indian tribes, between the Moors. Indian is a misnomer. Christopher Columbus thought he was somewhere else. Look it up. Christopher Columbus the people didn't call themselves Indian. Christopher Columbus just was misinformed and called them Indian. So all of his followers, of course, followed Christopher Columbus because he thought they was Indians. But don't look at it as that has to be you, and that's truth in it. Do your research and you'll see that nobody in North America were Indians. Okay? That's a belief. And it's time to shun all belief so we can walk into the marvelous light. So it says a government-to-government relationship. A government-to-government relationship. I don't know if you can see it. A government-to-government relationship. What this is saying to you all is these are some of your founding fathers right here. And this is the seal for the United States of America. That's the seal. Okay, that's the dual nation. The Constitution is a government-to-government relationship. This is the seal for the Franciscan Brotherhood, for the United States Corporation. This is their seal. Whose seal is this? Do you see? It just told you it's a government-to-government relationship. A government-to-government relationship. A government-to-government. So the problem is, who is these people? Okay? A government-to-government relationship between Indian tribes and the United States established in the Constitution. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including, most notably, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concepts of the Six Nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Moors. Whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system. So when they tell you that they were heathens and barbarians and uncivilized people, through their own legislation, it's dismissed from the surface, ab initio. And so when they say these people were poor, they lived in huts and they didn't have technology and all this kind of stuff, they had a political system. So these are organized thinkers who have concrete, black and white, or passed down verbally, a system to operate, meaning economics, law, governing all situations amongst a society of people. They had that. We had that. So don't let them confuse you and think that this, what we see, is something brand new. It's just based off of the concepts adopted. It's not created by its sole energy of Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, St. Arthur Clare, etc. It was adopted from the mindset of somebody else, okay, which is you. Okay, the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. It doesn't say it was a Democrat. It says democratic principles was put into the Constitution in the Republic. Whereas since the formation of the United States, the Congress, remember the House of Representatives and the Senate, that's the Congress, has recognized the sovereign status. There's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. That's a game the Europeans play, okay? There's no such thing as a sovereign citizen, but you have a sovereign status as an American citizen, as a national. Understanding each word has multiple meanings, you have to qualify in the sense of what you're saying. The Congress has recognized the sovereign status of Indian tribes and has, through the exercise of powers reserved to the federal government in the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. So this is the Constitution for all the states, the United States Constitution, the Constitution for the United States of America. And if you visit Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, if you visit Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, it dealt with the Moorish tribes on a government-to-government basis and has, through the treaty clause, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, entered into 370 treaties with the Moorish nation. Whereas from the first treaty, enter into the Moorish nation, the treaty with the Delaware Indians, and we know Delaware is also a misnomer, of September 17th, 1778. That's 4 years after the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, no, I take that back. The Declaration of Independence was 1774, I think. It was either 1774 or 1777. But that's close to the Declaration of Independence. So after the Declaration of Independence, they were able to go out and make treaties, okay, on the behalf of their independence and not attached to the Europe of today. So the Delaware Indians of September 17th, 1778, I think it was 1777, the Declaration of Independence. The Congress has assumed a trust. You hear a lot of Moors talking about trust. So study trust law, study UCCs, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and comprehend in its entirety what this contract is saying for us, the government-to-government relationship. So the Congress has a assumed trust, responsibility, and obligation to the Moors and their members. Whereas this trust responsibility calls for Congress to exercise the utmost good faith in dealings with Moors as provided in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Whereas the judicial system, Article 3, of the United States have consistently recognized and reaffirmed this special relationship. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives, the state concurring that 1, the Congress, on the occasion of the 200th anniversary of the signing of the United States Constitution, acknowledges the contribution made by the Iroquois Confederacy and other Indian nations to the formation and development of the United States Corporation. The Congress also hereby reaffirms the constitutionally recognized government to government. That's the whole point. Y'all have to hurry up and get it. It's not just words, just talking. It's straight up telling you this. Government, what's the point of this? What are these two? If it's not that, then someone explain in the comments, what do these two emblems represent? The insignias. This, you see? The government to government. The Congress also reaffirms the constitutionally recognized government to government relationship with Indian tribes, Moorish tribes, which has been the cornerstone of this, and the person who's writing this is the United States. So they're saying that the government to government relationship between the Moors has been a cornerstone for the United States Corporation. Official Indian policy, the official Moorish policies that was here before they even existed, before the Caucasians existed. The Congress specifically acknowledges and reaffirms the trust, responsibility, and obligation of the United States government to the Moorish tribes, including Alaska natives, for their preservation, protection, and enhancement, including the provision of health. Okay, so why are we taking prescriptions? Why are we taking poisons if you already have the right to be preserved in natural remedies in nature to get your minerals, you see, and vitamins, etc.? You have that right. So why are you going other places? Didn't the Bible tell you to honor thy mothers and thy fathers? So why are we not doing it? And the legislation tells you, it doesn't tell you you can do it. It secures what you already were doing thousands and thousands of years ago. So it includes the Alaska natives for their preservation, protection, and enhancement, including the provision of health, erudition, social and economic assistance programs as necessary, and including the duty to assist tribes in their performance of governmental responsibility, we have our own governmental responsibility. The dual nation is they have a trust responsibility to assist the Moors in the previous mentioned statement. Okay? So, and economic assistance programs as necessary, and including the duty to assist tribes in their performance of governmental responsibility to provide for the social and economic well-being, the social. So people know socialism is important, but a lot of people just, nothing matters. I'm black and I don't care because orange people are over there and it was so long ago and we're crazy because this happened. All of that, it means nothing at all. Okay. So your words that you use and your social responsibility to your brothers and sisters is as valuable as that fiat currency people die for. It's more valuable. It's way more valuable. But to see the point, the social and economic well-being of their members and to preserve tribal culture, identity, and heritage. So you have your governmental right to preserve your tribal culture and identity. You identify yourself as you choose to, long as it meets the requirements of the international requirement for identity. But you don't have to identify yourself as a United States federal citizen. There's no requirement on the planet. And if it is unconstitutional. In Article 1, well, Amendment 1, you have a right to petition the government. Okay? I'm not saying that they're government, but they're opposing as government, but really infiltrators and killers and murderers. So you see the point. The Congress also acknowledges the need to exercise the utmost good faith in upholding its treaties with the various tribes, you all. And the tribes as the tribes understood them. So a European can't come interpret to you the meaning of treaties. Whatever you say for is your interpretation, as long as it's in black and white and it's respectable and it makes sense. No one can tell you what nothing meant, okay? And don't believe they can. You read and you know words, and that's where your comprehension comes in at. So the Congress, the House and the Senate, also acknowledges the need to exercise the utmost good faith in upholding its treaties with the various tribes as the tribes understood them to be, and the duty of the great nation to uphold its legal and moral obligations for the benefit of all of its citizens, so that they and their posterity may also continue to enjoy the rights they have enshrined in the United States Constitution for time immemorable. Passed the House of Representatives, October 4th, 1988. And you telling me nobody knows that? Why, you all? Why? Just because it's new, is it exempt to you? That's your failure. That's the slavery. It does not matter, but then you turn around and say, fuck the police and fuck this. When in reality, the police have not done anything to you that you have not allowed, that you have not acquiesced to in the sense of an intellectual way to defend yourself. Those with eyes, let them see. We'll go into Section 2, Origin and Structure of Government. So I just gave you a little bit of background of comprehension of when you hear the word government, you can understand it's not talking about only the Europeans. The Europeans was operating as a trust responsibility for the one government, which was the Republic, the civilization founded by the Moors, which is Zodiac law, the knowledge of cosmos, astrology, etc. Look up the Zodiac Constitution, and the debate is over. Because it's not outside of nothing. It's in harmony with everything else, if your interpretation is correct. So Section 2, Origin and Structure of Government. Paragraph 1. The origin and foundation of government for the state of Georgia. All government of right. So if your government is not right, then you go to your First Amendment. You have a right to do away with that, okay? You don't have to allow stuff that's not right. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it don't matter who's doing it. It can be somebody purple, green, red. The other things are for children, okay? It doesn't matter if the Europeans are doing it. It doesn't matter if the Moors are doing it. If it is wrong, it is wrong. If it is right, it originates with the people. And the people have a right themselves to enforce it, including the Europeans, okay? Origin and foundation of government. All government of right originates with the people. It's founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. The Europeans are part of the whole, okay? It's the Moors' job to correct the misinformation that has been presented and let nature do the rest. But don't come with hate because of what you thought. You see? Correct the situations and move according through love, With love comes hate. So your love has to be divine. Can't just be some kind of colorable love for some kind of moment benefit. Okay? It's not love, you all. Origin and foundation of government. All government of right originates with the people, is founded upon their will only, and it's instituted solely for the good of the whole. Is 5G good for the whole, or is it good for the people who making money from it? Enforce the Constitution, you all, and the debate is over. Public officers are the trustees. What is a trustee? Public officers are the trustees and servants of the people and are at all times amendable to them. They can be changed according to them. Amendable, amendments, to add, to attach to something that exists. Ratify is to approve the amendment. The 13th, 14th, and 15th, everything after the 13th, 14th, etc., were unconstitutional. They're amendments, so you see what an amendment is. So you're able to amend what the public officers do and the trustees do. You're able to amend that. Paragraph 2, the object of government. The whole point of government of the state of Georgia is this. The people of this state have the inherent right of regulating their internal government. The people of this state have the inherent right of regulating their internal government. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit of the people. And at all times, they have the right to alter or reform the same whenever the public good may require it. Does the public good require 5G to destroy your health? Do you see the point? Okay, let's move forward. Paragraph 3, separation of legislative, judicial, and executive powers. So that caption should tell you the separation. What is separation? Separation. Meaning this hand is not able to do what this hand does because they're supposed to be separated. If it was like this, it's just not separated. This hand can mess around with this hand, you see? But that's not the order. That's not that's not the separation of, that's not the origin of the government. That's not the object of the government. And that's not the structure of the government. The structure is the separation, meaning you have people who make laws for the trustees. You have the judicial who determines what the legislative has presented in a sense of understanding the Constitution in public and private and interpreting the status and positions of the claimants that's in that situation. And the executive are the enforcers of the decisions made. Like the so-called president enforces the policies and codes for the public officers and trustees. He enforces that they go by their statutes and codes to ensure their trust responsibilities for the dual nation. That's why statutes and codes can't apply to you. That's the whole point of the Constitution. You see? So separation of legislative, judicial, and executive powers. The legislative, judicial, and executive powers shall forever remain separate and distinct. And no persons discharging the duties of one shall at the same time exercise the functions of either of the others except as herein provided. So if you ask the prosecutor in court and say whatever, the judge can't answer for the prosecutor. They're violating the Constitution in their positions, which is separation of power and their fiduciary responsibilities. Research what is a prosecutor, what is a magistrate, what is a defendant, what is a claimant, what is a petitioner, what is a defendant, etc. What are these? What is a point guard? What is a shooting guard? What is a small forward? What is a power forward? What is a center? And what are their roles? And it's that simple. And then you grow from there. What is the roles? You see? Contempt. Paragraph 4. The power of the courts to punish for contempt shall be limited by legislative acts. Paragraph 5. So research contempt and comprehend it. Paragraph 5. What acts are void? It says, what acts are void? Legislative acts. So it doesn't matter who's enforcing it. It doesn't matter who said it. This is the Constitution. This is through love that we all can become better citizens for our posterity. So those who oppose this, open your eyes and you'll begin to see what acts are void. Legislative acts in violation. Legislative acts in violation. Let's break it down. Statutes and codes in violation. Resolutions in violation. Okay? Any act, Federal Reserve Act, Public Tax Salary Act, etc. Act, in violation of this Constitution or the Constitution for the United States of America are void, and the judiciary shall so declare them. You don't get that? So what it's saying to you, first, if you don't know the Constitution, how do you know? You see, if you don't know the Constitution, then of course it applies to you because you don't have a defense. But if you know the Constitution, it says it don't matter how it happened. Anything that is outside of the Constitution for the United States of America is already void. It has no powers, only assumed. Superiority of civil authority. The civil authority shall be superior to the military. Paragraph 7. Separation of church and state. Separation of church. And think about that. If it's separation of the church and state, meaning that they do what they want as separate things, why isn't churches teaching about universal law, laws of nature? Why don't the churches do that? Because shouldn't the Constitution line up with what God said? And I'm sure it does. But do statutes and codes. Do statutes and codes line up to what God said? Or not? No money shall ever be taken for the public treasury, directly or indirectly, in aid of any church, sect, cult, or religious denomination of any sectarian institution, lotteries and non-profit bingo games, except as herein specifically provided in this paragraph 8. All lotteries and the sale of lottery tickets and all forms of pyramidal betting and casino gambling are hereby prohibited. And this prohibition shall be enforced by penal laws. The General Assembly may by law provide the operation of a non-profit bingo game shall not be a lottery and shall be legal in this state. The General Assembly is basically, for each state, you have a House and you have a Senate of each particular state. That's your General Assembly, okay? May by law define a non-profit bingo game and provide for the regulation of non-profit bingo games. The General Assembly may by law provide for the operation and regulation of a lottery or lotteries by or on behalf of the state and for any matters relating to the purposes or provisions of this subparagraph. Proceeds derived from the lottery or lotteries operating on behalf of the state shall be used to pay the operating expenses of the lottery or lotteries, including all prizes, without any appropriation required by law, and for educational programs and purposes herein provided, you all. Do you see the problem? Is there a problem in that? Proceeds derived from the lottery or lotteries operated by or on behalf of the state shall be used to pay for the operating expenses of the lottery or lotteries, including all prizes, without any approbation required by law, for educational programs and purposes as herein provided. The lottery is supposed to be used to help enlighten the brothers, the posterity. Is it, and how much is going to that? See how much work needs to be done? Lottery proceeds shall not be subject to Article 7, Section 3, Paragraph 2, or Article 3, Section 9, Paragraph 6A, and Article 3, Section 9, Paragraph 4C, except that the net proceeds after payment of such operating expenses shall be subject to Article 7, Section 3, Paragraph 2. It's only 7 sections in the Constitution. I wonder why. 7 Elohim, 7 ruling planets, 7 days, 7 degrees of the week, 7 stages of development in the womb for 9 months. Do you see why it was adopted? You see the whole point? Net proceeds after payment of such operating expenses shall be separately accounted for and shall be specifically identified by the governor in his annual budget presented to the General Assembly and a separate budget category entitled Lottery Proceeds, and the governor shall make specific recommendations. The governor, so we need to start talking to these people, okay, in an intellectual manner. The governor shall make specific recommendations as to educational programs and educational purposes to which said net proceeds shall be appropriated. In the General Appropriations Act, adopted by the General Assembly of this state, the General Assembly shall appropriate all net proceeds of the lottery or lotteries by such separate budget category to educational programs and educational purposes. Such net proceeds shall be used to support improvements and enhancement for educational programs and purposes, and such net proceeds shall be used to supplement, not supplant, non-lottery educational resources for educational programs and purposes. The educational programs and educational purposes for which proceeds may be so appropriated shall include only the following: tuition grants, scholarships, or loans to citizens of this state to enable such citizens to attend college and universities located within this state, regardless of whether such colleges or universities are operated by the Board of Regents, or to attend institutions operated under the authority of the Department of Technical and Adult Education, voluntary pre-kindergarten, one or more educational shortfall reserves in a total amount of not less than 10% of the net proceeds of the lottery for the preceding fiscal year. So we got people thinking it's a new year, but it's the fiscal year. You see how separated from nature you are, when the whole point was the laws of nature, which the founding fathers of the corporation knew. That's why they adopted it. And the fiscal year of January is not a new year according to the vernal equinox. It's not true. It's a fiscal year. It's talking about commerce. And if you're the product, you celebrate stuff like that. But it has no benefit for you besides you get more Federal Reserve notes, more debt obligations. 4, cost of providing to teachers at accredited public institutions who teach levels K through 12, personnel at public post-secondary technical institutions under the authority of the Department of Technical and Adult Education. Charter schools would probably fall up under this. charter schools, and you know, of course, charter schools, you can do different stuff. But read the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People if you want to know what I'm saying to you. And professors and instructors with the University System of Georgia the necessary training in the use of application of computers and advancement electronic instructional technology to implement interactive learning environments in the classroom and to access statewide distant learning network and capital outlay projects for educational facilities, provided, however, that no funds shall be appropriated for the items listed in the paragraphs and this subsection until all persons eligible for and applying for assistance as provided in paragraph 1 of this subsection have received for assistance all approved pre-kindergarten programs provided for in paragraph 2 of this subsection have been fully funded, and the education shortfall reserves provided for in paragraph 3 of this subsection have been fully funded. On or after January 1st, 1995, the holding of raffles by nonprofit organizations shall be lawful and shall not be prohibited by any law enacted prior to January 1st, 1994. Laws enacted on or after January 1st, 1994, however, may restrict, regulate, or prohibit the operations of such raffles. Paragraph 9. Sovereign immunity. Immunity is like to be covered. It's almost like insurance, and waiver thereof. Sovereign immunity and waiver thereof. Claims against the state and its departments, agencies, officers, and employees. The General Assembly may waive the state's sovereign immunity from suit by enacting a state tort claim act. So use a tort to sue those people. Don't go do nothing different. Use a tort claim. Study the State Tort Claims Act, World Court, etc., and different consular courts, etc. But we'll start over. Sovereign immunity and waiver thereof. Claims against the state and its departments, agencies, officers, and employees. The General Assembly may waive the state's sovereign immunity from suit by enacting a state tort claims act in which the General Assembly may provide by law for procedures for the making. So it's a way you do it, the administrative procedure of it, but the remedy is there. Handling and disposition of actions or claims against the state and its departments, agencies, officers, and employees upon such terms and subject to such conditions and limitations as the General Assembly may provide. B. The General Assembly may also provide by law for the processing and disposition of claims against the state which do not exceed the maximum amount as provided therein. This is important, you all. C. The state's defense of sovereign immunity is hereby waived as to any action ex contractual for the breach of any written contract now existing or hereafter created into by the state or its departments and agencies. So if they violate their constitution, they violate their oath, their contractual nexus, if they violate their terms and conditions, their indenture, they have no sovereign immunity. If they violate their oath, their contract, they have no immunity. And that's not coming from Kawase. It's coming from paragraph 9, section C of the State of Georgia's Constitution. Except as specifically provided by the General Assembly in a State Tort Claims Act, all officers and employees of the state or its department and agencies may be subject to suit and may be liable for injuries and damages caused by the negligent performance of or negligent failure to perform, even failure to perform their ministerial functions, and may be liable for injuries and damages if they act with actual malice or with actual intent to cause injury in the performance of their official functions. Okay? And that's important, you all. Read that. Section 2 of the State of Georgia Constitution, paragraph 9, section C. And I'll read the rest of this. Except as provided in this subparagraph, officers and employees of this state or department and agency shall not be subject to suit or liability, despite what was previously said. They shall not be subject. So when people say you can't sue judges and you can't do this because of the Immunity Act, you immediately know they have not read. It's only because that's what people have told them. But themselves have not read it. Okay? They cannot show you where it says that in its full meaning. I just did. Okay. Except as provided in this subparagraph, officers and employees of the state or its departments and agencies shall not be subject to suit or liability, and no judgment shall be entered against them for the performance or non-performance of their official functions. The provisions of this subparagraph shall not be waived unless it's a tort claim and they breach their contract, except as specifically provided in this paragraph. So if it's provided in this paragraph, it can be waived, but it is not. Then so you have to come somewhere to bring your defense. Except as specifically provided in this paragraph, sovereign immunity extends to the state and all of its departments and agencies. The sovereign immunity of the state and its departments and agencies can only be waived by an act of the General Assembly, which is what? The State Tort Claims Act, which specifically provides that sovereign immunity is thereby waived and the extent of such waiver. No waiver of sovereign immunity under this paragraph shall be construed as a waiver of any immunity provided to the state or its department, agencies, officers, or employees by the United States Constitution. So in brief, it's just saying to you all, they have immunity, but not if they're violating their contract. Okay? If they're doing something inside of their fiduciary capacity, inside of their contract, and it does something to injure or to do something, you can't bring a suit or a claim. But if it's outside of what they agreed to even be there, if they're operating outside of that, that's when the tort claim is presented, okay, according to the Constitution. So we'll pick back up soon, and I'll start back with Section 3, general provisions, the general provisions. And we'll continue to read. Some of the other things coming next is marriage, voting and elections, the method of voting, and right to register to vote. General provisions is another section. Section 2 is also general provisions, and it talks about procedures to be provided by law. Procedures, person is not eligible to hold office. Vaccines created by elected officials qualifying for other office, that's not vaccines, vacancies, vacancies. And so we'll pick back up you all real soon, and we'll just keep building and building. Of course, I'll have, in between, I'll probably be dropping other information according to whatever needs to be talked about according to the ancestors. So I hope this video was helpful. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. I'm all about building and listening to nature. And I comprehend nature. And, of course, I can learn more about it. But nature has shown me that things happen in seasons. And in each season, it's the same energy that exists, but it's different angles that reaches this ball of mud according to the seasons. And so with this education, I want to look at it from that sense. And sometimes even me and other brothers, I'll fall short. And so the point is to correct, but to correct in the sense of love and growth and to move forward and not a debate type of correctness. So let's do that with one another, and let's get more active in accomplishing things and not just reading and talking, So I hope this video was helpful. Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 as soon as I can. So peace and love. Pax out more. Islam.